A sharp tear sliced through the air, quick, clean, precise, like a blade. Logan Pierce's boarding pass hit the floor, ripped in half right in front of him by a hand, trained to command, to impose, to treat judgment as a birthright. Olivia Grant stood there, unmoving eyes, icy blue lips pressed tight, her voice cutting like metal against steel. "You're in the wrong place. Economy is behind you. No question, no pause to double-check, only a verdict delivered as fast as muscle memory." Early morning wind swept across the jet bridge at John F. Kennedy Airport, dragging streaks of rain against the glass, like the sky itself was clawing at the windows. It turned the moment into something colder, heavier, larger than a mistake. It became a social sentence. Logan stood still, back-straight eyes, dark and deep, like untouched granite. He did not speak, did not react, did not raise his voice, did not push back. Only one slow breath, very slow, the kind taken by someone far too familiar with insults disguised as procedure. The imaginary camera pushed close to his face, capturing that look, the look of a man who understood exactly how the world treated him, and who also understood how dangerous he could be if he chose to strike back at the wrong moment. But Olivia didn't care. She saw a black man in a suit stepping into first class, and that was all she needed to pass judgment. "Leave the aircraft now. I will not repeat myself." Her voice rang loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. A few turned their heads, a few nodded subtly, a few eyes drifted over him with quiet evaluation. It was the same old story of bias. Some people are doubted the moment they appear. Logan bent down and picked up the torn pieces of his boarding pass. His hand shook slightly, not from fear, but from restrained fury, the kind that sits heavy and silent like deep ocean ice. "I believe there is a misunderstanding." "This is," Logan began, but Olivia cut him off instantly. "I do not need you to explain. I know this type already." She shook her head, as if tired of the routine. "Last chance. Out." That phrase, "this type," slammed into Logan like a stone thrown across generations. Not explicit, not named, but clear enough in its meaning. Logan tightened his grip on his briefcase. Still no anger, still no outburst, like a caged panther forced to stand still, just long enough to see whether the rusted cage in front of him would dare lock itself. The imaginary camera pulled back, revealing the long jet bridge stretching out behind them, their shadows dividing the space, like a line drawn between pretend authority and real power. The injustice did not stop. Olivia yanked her radio from her belt. "Gate 14. I need security. Passenger attempting to board first class with a fake ticket." The words landed like a hammer, no longer a paper tear, but a death sentence for dignity. Two security officers appeared, Sergeant Cole Hartman and Officer Drew Lanning, their boots hitting the floor like marching drums. "What is the issue?" Cole asked, voice low and cold. Olivia pointed straight at Logan. He used a photoshopped boarding pass. When I told him to leave, he resisted. The word photoshopped rolled off her tongue like something she used any time a ticket looked too expensive for someone like Logan. Logan lifted his tablet, opening his digital ticket. Clear, legitimate seat 1A. His voice came out slow and sharp like the edge of steel. "This is my ticket. I recommend verifying before any of you lay a hand on me." Cole glanced at the screen. Drew scanned it. A small beep confirmed it as valid. But Olivia did not budge. She folded her arms. "Scanners can be hacked. I do not trust it." Silence fell thick and heavy. This was no longer protocol. It was stubbornness, bias, arrogance, the refusal to accept being wrong. even when evidence slapped her in the face. "So please leave the boarding area," Cole ordered. "There is no valid reason to," Logan began, but Olivia jabbed a finger toward his face, her eyes cold, with a twisted sense of victory. "You do not belong in that cabin." The words dropped like poison. Logan stood taller, not to confront, but to remember. To imprint every smirk, every accusation, every condescending look. Because sometimes silence is the sharpest revenge, letting others dig their own grave. Cole placed a hand on his arm, pushing him back. Drew stepped forward to assist. Several passengers had stopped to record. Phone screens lit up like judging eyes, capturing every fragment of unfolding injustice. Logan looked at Olivia one last time. His eyes no longer held anger, no longer hurt, only one thing, a promise to set everything back where it belonged. The imaginary camera rotated slowly, his shadow stretching long across the jet bridge floor as security escorted him out like a criminal. Olivia stood behind them, chin raised, satisfied, convinced she had won. She had no idea she had removed the wrong man. Very wrong. Wrong enough that the airline, the system, the entire structure she relied on to belittle others was about to collapse on her, like a condemned building pulled down in a single yank. The final shot closed on Logan, walking out of the aircraft eyes, fixed ahead, silent tight as a drawn wire, a quiet kind of power that crushes anything in its path. The storm had not begun, but the one who would bring it had already taken his first step. Cole tightened his grip on Logan's arm as they stepped out of the jet bridge, rain pounding against the aircraft like a rolling drumbeat. Logan remained silent, not out of fear, but because he was observing every detail, every stare, every wrong choice lining up neatly in front of him. And Olivia walked just ahead of them, satisfied carrying herself like someone who believed she had played the winning move. She had no idea she was the one stepping toward the edge of a pit. A cold draft swept in from the glass windows, ruffling Logan's hair, but his eyes stayed razor-sharp. Passengers in the waiting area looked up as he was pushed out, phones rising instantly to capture the scene. Faces tired from delays shifted to wary, then curious, then judgmental. A black man in a suit being removed from a plane. Someone whispered, probably boarded the wrong section. Another scoffed, first class, dressed like that. Logan heard every word. He did not respond, but each comment added fuel to the fire growing steadily in his chest. Olivia turned back, arms crossed like a mediocre clerk who believed she had caught a rule breaker. Her voice was sharp, intentionally loud, meant to win the crowd before the truth could. This passenger attempted to use a photoshopped ticket to enter first class. "I request he be detained until verification is complete." She spoke as if facts were optional, as if her belief alone was enough to make something real. Logan lifted his tablet, holding it up for everyone to see. "My electronic ticket. Lennox to Houston. Seat 1A. Scan it." His voice did not shake, did not drop a kind of quiet that made Olivia flinch for half a second, though she quickly dismissed it. Drew scanned the ticket. The beep was crisp bright green, confirming validity. The waiting area went still for a heartbeat. Logan tilted his head, his eyes locking onto Olivia. He said nothing, but the message was unmistakable. She was wrong, very wrong. Olivia's lips tightened, her face tensing for 1 second before she recovered. The scanner must be malfunctioning. That happens when someone tampers with the system. The accusation rolled off her tongue as easily as breathing. Hartman stepped forward, his large hand pressing down on Logan's shoulder, as if eager to end the situation quickly. Please follow us once more. Sit in the security area. We will handle this later." Logan's gaze swept slowly across every person in front of him, the staff, the passengers, Olivia, assessing the entire board. He reached into his suit pocket and pulled out his phone. His fingers moved with a calmness so cold it made the air seem thinner. "They have begun," Logan said softly, his voice low, but carrying just enough for Olivia to hear. "Activate." The call ended with a quiet click. Olivia frowned, a ripple of unease rising along her spine for the first time. "Who did you call?" "The person who will remind everyone that I am not the man you want to challenge." No raised voice, no threat, only a statement, a fact. Footsteps echoed in the terminal, fast, heavy, urgent. 2 more security personnel rushed in, not to assist Olivia, but to deliver news. Drew answered a call through the internal line, his face draining of color eyes, widening like someone who had accidentally opened a classified file. "Hartman, the system just flagged this passenger as a corporate VIP for Falcon Air, top-tier classification." Hartman froze. Olivia went still, the smirk on her face collapsing into something twisted. Logan simply lifted his gaze, looking straight through her, past the mask of stubborn superiority she wore. "Now tell me who does not belong in that cabin." Olivia opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The truth hit her like a slap. But it was not over. Logan knew she would not stop. People like Olivia were never afraid of being wrong, only of being exposed. And she had just been exposed in front of dozens of witnesses. Logan adjusted his collar, slid his tablet back into his bag, then walked toward the aircraft, as Hartman was forced to step aside. He turned to Olivia one more time. His eyes were sharp and cold enough to slice through whatever remained of her confidence. "You have created a mistake you will not be able to undo." Olivia stared after him, hands clenched until her knuckles turned white. She did not fear his VIP status. She did not fear his authority. She feared humiliation. And when fear mixed with pride, it transformed into one thing: retaliation. Logan stepped back into the jet bridge, his shadow stretching across the wet floor. The aircraft door was just ahead, silent, waiting to swallow him into something much bigger. The storm outside had not cleared, but the storm inside had just taken form. And Olivia Grant, standing behind him with fire in her eyes, had already made a decision that would drag the entire flight into a spiral no one could have predicted. Logan stepped into the first-class cabin, the air noticeably different from the chaos outside, warmer, quieter calm to the point of irony after the storm he had just walked through. Soft amber light washed over rows of leather seats, the faint scent of wood and coffee, adding a polished luxury as if this place had never witnessed injustice. But the imaginary camera followed closely behind him, and the silence here was not peace. It was the final stillness before the surface split open. He sat down in seat 1A. He did not adjust the blanket. He did not fasten his seatbelt. He simply sat, upright, eyes forward, locked on the front of the cabin. A man dragged off a plane by prejudice, then summoned back as a corporate figure too important for anyone to touch. 2 opposite worlds colliding in less than 10 minutes. And deep inside, he knew this was far from over. The cabin curtain rippled. Olivia appeared like a shadow. Her face no longer carried the smug confidence she wore earlier. What remained was something twisted by humiliation and barely contained rage. Lips pressed tight, eyes burning. Being publicly shamed always pushed people like her to fix things in their own way. She walked straight toward Logan's row, each step hitting the carpet like the thrust of an invisible blade. Logan did not need to look to feel her breath drawing closer, a single shade of energy, venomous, unstable, wrapped in the thin excuse of, "I am just doing my job." "You think you are something special, Olivia?" whispered her voice, sharp, like metal scraping porcelain. Logan did not look up. "I think the truth speaks for itself." The answer was quiet, not confrontational, but it pierced straight into the one void Olivia refused to face. She had been wrong. Her lips twitched. "Do not think you can fool me. I have seen 100 cases like you, all trying to squeeze into places they do not belong." Logan tilted his head, and his eyes cut into her with cold assessment, not anger. "Like the way you squeezed into a role that does not belong to you, the role of someone who protects fairness while you are the one distorting it." Olivia stepped back half a pace, as if slapped. But the retreat was only to gather more venom. "Do not try to lecture me," she hissed. "This is not over." She turned away, disappearing behind the curtain, like the shadow of someone preparing to stab from behind. The cabin returned to silence, but it was only a shell. Logan leaned back, breathing slowly, though his eyes never left the faint outline of the curtain. He knew her type. They never forgot humiliation, never swallowed mistakes, and always believed they had the right to bend the world to match their feelings. His phone buzzed with a notification. He unlocked it, a message from Mia Donovan. "Orders received. Everything is moving. Let her play her part." Logan read it, locked the screen again, and remained still. No smile, only compressed calm. He knew Falcon Air had dark corners. People like Olivia didn't appear by accident. They were nurtured by a system that was murky old and rotting from the inside. And when a system used to darkness meets someone who knows he carries the light, it always fights back before it collapses. The landing gear began to roll, the aircraft vibrating gently. That first movement shifted the energy in the air, a subtle signal of something bigger approaching. From the galley, Olivia's whisper leaked through just loud enough for Logan to catch fragments. "Captain, I do not feel safe. Passenger 1A, he threatened me. I think he is unstable." Her voice tilted toward tremor, but Logan recognized it immediately. It was not fear. It was strategy. One press of a button, one shift in tone, one baseless accusation, and a black man in a suit instantly became a threat. The cabin felt bright and dim at the same time. Outside the window, the runway glistened with reflected lights. The aircraft accelerated, the engines building, like the breath of a beast preparing to launch into the sky. Logan closed his eyes for 1 second, not to rest, but to memorize the sound of Olivia's voice, the warning signal of a trap being assembled behind the curtain. He heard the captain respond through the intercom. "I will handle it. Close the door. Lock the cabin." A metal door slid shut with a cold echo. When the wheels lifted off the ground, Logan opened his eyes. He had flown countless flights, but none had ever begun with silence that felt like a sentence. He knew that from the moment the plane left the earth, Olivia had placed him exactly where she believed he belonged beneath her. He also knew she had just positioned her entire career against the one person on this aircraft with the power to bring the entire system down with a single sentence. The plane trembled lightly as it hit the first gust of wind. But what waited behind the cabin curtain carried far more force than anything outside in the sky. The engines changed pitch as the aircraft pierced the first layer of cloud, the metal body trembling like an unsettled spirit. No one in first class knew that just behind a thin curtain, a lie was about to turn into a blade aimed straight at an innocent man. Olivia leaned into the interphone, her posture rigid as stone, her voice trembling at exactly the level of a seasoned manipulator. Captain Passenger 1A just threatened me. He said he would make me regret it. I do not feel safe. Each word dropped like a drip of poison into the listener's ear. Captain Russ Archer paused for a few seconds, just long enough to believe her. "Hold position. I will handle it." His answer was short, clipped like a command. Logan opened his eyes as a white beam from the window slashed across the cabin, as if the lie had just been released into the air, spreading like toxic vapor. He saw Olivia's silhouette shifting behind the curtain, hurried, frantic, but hiding a dark satisfaction. She was escalating, and she believed she held the upper hand. 2 crew members appeared, a thin man with nervous blinking and a broad woman clutching a clipboard like a verdict. They stopped in front of Logan's seat, their eyes avoiding his, as if he were the danger being constructed behind the curtain. "Sir, please stand." The woman's voice was tense, polite on the surface, trembling underneath. Logan did not move. "Reason. The captain requests it. Please follow us now. No explanation, no conversation, no truth, only orders." Logan rose, slowly. Very slowly. The imaginary camera followed that movement, each inch of him rising as if pulling up the weight of every time he had been doubted, judged, placed inside the box the world wanted to shove him into. He towered over them by a full head, tall enough that his presence made a few passengers shiver. But Logan threatened no one. He simply stood, straight, watching. A gaze sharp enough to peel back the layers of lies covering the entire first-class cabin. They led him away. Not to another seat. Not to any open space. They led him in the opposite direction, the curtain sweeping aside like the entrance to a smaller, darker world, thick with prejudice. They stopped at a small metal door. One glance was enough. Logan knew instantly the crew storage compartment, a cramped 6x4-foot box, stale and cold. "You will stay here until the captain allows you back," the woman said, avoiding his eyes. The thin man pushed the door open. The smell of chemicals, plastic, and old metal rushed out. Passengers behind them began murmuring. Phones rose. Some looked away, some stared not out of fear of Logan, but fear of being pulled into the truth. Olivia stood at the curtain, half her face visible, wearing a small smile sharp enough to cut. She said nothing. She did not need to. Her eyes spoke clearly. "Go in. This is where you belong." Logan stared at her for one long, endless second. No rage, no shouting, no protest. Only silence, as solid as steel, the silence of someone observing every detail of a crime as it is being committed. Then he stepped inside. The door slammed behind him, the metallic clang echoing like the lock of an improvised prison. In the darkness, the aircraft shuddered harder as it pushed through colder air. Logan stood straight back against the wall, arms relaxed. The space was so tight, his shoulders nearly touched both sides. He breathed slowly. Just once. But it was not the breath of surrender. It was the breath of a man who knew he had been placed into the perfect trap, and who understood even more clearly that he was standing exactly where he needed to be to flip it. Outside, Olivia began speaking loudly enough for her words to slip through the door's edges. He was aggressive. I tried to speak calmly, but he came close to my face. I thought he would attack me. She lied with the smoothness of someone reciting lines from a script. The broad woman responded, "We will keep him in the compartment until landing." The plane tilted slightly. In the dark, Logan opened his eyes, pupils cutting through the black like blades. He took out his phone. A weak signal flickered once, then vanished. Another flicker. Fragile, but enough. One message was sent. Only 4 words. Activate Phase 2. The metal panel above him rattled as the aircraft temporarily dropped altitude to avoid turbulence. Logan tilted his head, listening to the outside world shifting direction. He knew one thing well. Every system trying to hide its mistakes always exposes its weakest seam. And the one who understands a system best is always the one who owns it. In the back of the economy cabin, a passenger, a tired young man, lifted his phone. The camera caught the exact moment Olivia smirked in front of the compartment door she had just locked. A guilty smile so blatant that 3 seconds of video were enough to ignite the internet. The clip went live on X with the caption, "Falcon Air locks a first-class passenger in a storage compartment." What is going on here? 3 minutes later, it began spreading like a spark, hitting a vat of gasoline. Inside the compartment, Logan closed his eyes. A faint smile appeared on his lips. Not joy. Not revenge. Just the calm of someone who knew the first wave had begun. And the second, the third, the fourth were on their way, like a rising tide, about to pull an entire system off the ground. The storage compartment shook in rhythm with the aircraft's body, each tilt echoing like a drum, announcing a battle swelling outside. In the suffocating darkness, Logan stood still, like a block of black stone forged in flame. The stale smell of plastic, the sting of disinfectant, the cold bite of metal clung to the cramped air. But none of it was as suffocating as the injustice pressing against his face every second. Outside, Olivia's voice carried clearly through the thin crack of the door, far too clear to be accidental. He was aggressive. He looked at me like he wanted to do something. I warned him, but he still came towards me. She recited the story like a pre-written report, adding twisting, reshaping. Each sentence a brick, and she was building a wall of accusation around Logan with the blind confidence the system had nurtured in her. Reed, the broad crew member, approached the compartment. His voice was thick with the stench of old cigarettes. Someone like that should have been locked up from the start. You can tell he is trouble. Olivia let out a soft laugh. Not loud, but sharp. That is where he belongs. In first class, whispers spread like an undercurrent. Some passengers stared toward the curtain with suspicion. Others nodded, convinced they had already seen the kind of man Logan must be, and Olivia was simply doing her job. Half the plane leaned toward the lie. The other half was about to lean towards the truth. And truth often needs only one spark. That spark came from economy. The young passenger who posted the first video kept recording. From seat 3B, his shaky camera caught everything. Olivia leaning against the galley wall, her lips curved upward. No fear, no tension, no sense of being threatened, only arrogance. He posted a second clip. She is smiling. She does not look scared of anything. The two videos began spreading. One video needed only seconds to become evidence. Two videos were enough to erase an entire fabricated narrative. The plane hit light turbulence, the compartment walls rattling like a cage holding a trapped animal. Logan didn't move. He felt every jolt, every vibration, every set of footsteps outside. The chaos in the cabin only sharpened his focus. People reveal themselves when things began to shake. Olivia was shaking. She just did not know it yet. Fast footsteps approached. A young male voice spoke up, nervous but firm. I think Passenger 1A didn't do anything. I have a bit of it recorded. You were kind of smiling. The air froze. Olivia whipped around. Her eyes flared. Are you accusing me of lying? The young man stepped back, stammering. Olivia moved closer, dropping her voice to a low metallic hook. Put that phone away or I will call security to escort you off the moment we land. That threat spoken in that exact second was captured by a third person, a middle-aged woman in seat 4A. Her phone trembled slightly, but the audio was crystal clear. She said nothing. She simply pressed post. Inside the compartment, Logan heard notifications chiming from someone's phone outside. Small sounds, but to him they were signals that the battlefield of social media had begun to shift. He took out his own phone again. A fragile single bar of signal flickered. A message from Mir appeared, pushing media harder. Hold position. Hold position. In darkness. In the silence reserved for the lowest rung. But from the lowest vantage point, a man can see most clearly who stands on real ground and who stands on illusion. Reed slammed his fist against the compartment door. "Listen," he growled. "You try anything, and I will strap you to this cabinet until we land. No resistance, no words, no sound." But that silence unsettled Reed more than any argument could. And when small-minded authority meets silence, they mistake it for weakness. Olivia stepped forward again, raising her voice for the surrounding crew. "If he gets out, I do not know what he might do. I am really scared." The word scared came out sweet as artificial sugar, but that sugar was being peeled apart by light. At that moment, from the rear of the cabin, someone shouted, "Hey!" Why is he locked in there? Who said that was allowed? Every head turned toward the compartment. Reed stood guarding the door like a warden beside a cell. Olivia tried to compose herself, but her face tightened her eyes, scanning the cabin like an animal cornered. The door did not open, but the battle had. In the darkness, Logan inhaled deeply, hearing the sound of the aircraft slicing through the clouds. He knew big shifts never begin with loud action. They begin with moments like this, when lies start tearing themselves apart. And as the aircraft shuddered again, Logan opened his eyes. No more compartment. No more darkness. Only a cold, cutting clarity. If Olivia thought this was his limit, she had never met the real storm. The aircraft's vibration stretched out like the low growl of a provoked beast. The cabin lights flickered once, then steadied again. But no one in first class felt steady. A strange pressure settled over the air, the kind that comes right before a dam bursts. Reed stood guard in front of the storage compartment where Logan was being held, his arms braced against the wall muscles, tight like cables ready to snap. Olivia strode from the galley toward the front cabin, her heels striking the carpet with sharp, rapid clicks. The rhythm of someone who had lied, was terrified of being exposed, yet was still trying to assert authority. She pulled the curtain open. Every passenger's gaze landed on her. Some phones were still recording. Olivia straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, reclaiming the posture of a self-appointed guardian of order. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced loudly, "we are handling a disruptive passenger. Please remain calm. Everything is under control." A short laugh echoed from mid-cabin, not amused, but mocking. A man stood holding his phone high. "I filmed everything. I saw you push him. I saw you lock that door." His voice was firm, cutting. "Are you actually handling something, or are you covering it up?" The entire cabin inhaled at once. Olivia froze mid-step, swallowing panic. But that was only the ignition. From seat 2, C. Rachel, the civil rights attorney, stood. Her sharp bob framed her face, her eyes cold as if she were in a courtroom, instead of an airplane cabin. "I am a civil rights lawyer," she declared. "What I have witnessed since boarding this flight is unlawful detainment and deliberate discrimination." She tilted her head, dissecting Olivia with a single look. "I have live-streamed all of it." Olivia's entire posture tightened like an overtuned violin string. "You do not understand the situation. Passenger 1A. Rachel sliced through her words with a line sharp enough to draw blood. "He has not done anything, but you have." A ripple of quiet gasps moved through the cabin like wind brushing across water before the waves rise. Reed, still stationed at the compartment, flushed red. He barked loudly to mask his unease. "Everyone sit down. This is crew business." But yelling only slapped away what little authority they had left. The passengers were no longer convinced, no longer intimidated, no longer silent. From the economy section, a curly-haired teenager lifted his phone high. "My first clip already has almost 300,000 views. People online are saying Falcon Air is being racist. The hashtag is blowing up Olivia's face, drained of color." Reed clenched his fists, but once public momentum finds direction, it never slows. The plane jolted through a patch of turbulence, a faint, popping sound, echoing from the exterior, startling several passengers. But what shook the cabin was not air. It was truth. An older man's voice rose from row 5. "You locked a man in a cabinet because he did not look like the type who should be in first class." His voice trembled slightly, but carried weight. "I have flown for 40 years. I have never seen such blatant abuse of power." Olivia stepped back. No evidence, no excuses, no control, only the isolation of someone being exposed. The storage door beside her shifted, a faint metallic rattle. Not because Logan was pushing, he had not touched it, but because the atmosphere inside the cabin was turning. People were standing, whispering louder. Anger condensing into something heavy, something pushing back against Olivia and Reed like a rising tide. Rachel tapped her phone. "I am connecting directly with Falcon Air's media office. If you continue obstructing anything, you are signing your own termination." Her words struck like a hammer onto a rotten pillar. Olivia swallowed hard, tendons rising in her neck. Her eyes flickered from rage to despair, then to something far more dangerous, the madness of someone with nothing left to lose. She leaned in close to Reed, whispering harshly, "Open the door. Move him to the lower crew storage. I will say he attacked me. The captain will not risk it." Reed nodded. He reached for the latch. But before his hand touched metal, a scream exploded from the back of the aircraft, hitting the cabin like lightning. "Stop, do not touch him." Every head whipped around. A girl, maybe 13, stood on her seat, her phone trembling in her hand as she live-streamed, but her voice rang out clear. "I recorded all of it. I saw you shove him in there. I saw you hold him illegally, and I will post everything if you do not stop." No one breathed for 2 full seconds. The cabin fell into a sharp, chilling silence. Olivia spun around her face, contorting with fury, but beneath it was something else. Fear. Not the fear of a victim, the fear of someone caught. Reed slowly pulled his hand away from the latch. Inside the compartment, Logan stood with his eyes open, listening to every word, every shout, every frantic breath outside. He had not seen any of it, but he knew. The moment power begins to shift is the moment truth finds its voice, and the cabin had just chosen to stand with the truth. The plane punched through a thick bank of clouds, jolting hard as if the sky itself was tightening under the chaos erupting inside the cabin. Olivia spun around, her eyes blazing like someone pushed to the edge of a cliff. Her calm mask was gone, stripped clean. No more fabricated authority, no more poised composure. What remained was panic, wrapped in anger. Reed stood beside the compartment where Logan was locked, his bulky frame rigid, but his eyes darting nervously between Olivia and the furious passengers. He was not used to being watched, and he was even less used to being recorded. He inhaled sharply, clenched his fists, then slowly lowered them. A tiny movement, but one that spoke louder than words. He was starting to fear. The economy cabin was a storm, voices overlapping, footsteps shifting, notifications from live streams announcing increasing viewers. This moment no longer belonged to Falcon Air. It no longer belonged to Olivia. It no longer belonged to Reed. It belonged to the court of public opinion, and that court was sitting right here on this airplane. Rachel stood in the aisle, her gaze sharp as a scalpel. She raised her phone high, its camera aimed at Olivia, like a spotlight exposing a predator in the dark. "You said he threatened you?" Rachel asked, not shouting, not trembling, only a steady certainty that silenced the entire cabin. "Then why were you smiling after you locked the door?" A passenger spoke up. "I saw it too." Another added, "I have a clip." Olivia opened her mouth, but no complete word came out. She was sinking. Reed swallowed. I was just following the lead flight attendant's orders." Olivia whipped around. "You shut up!" Reed interrupted her for the first time since the flight began. "No, you are not dragging me down with you." A crack, small but deadly, the beginning of collapse. The plane shook again. The air shifted heavier, tighter. Inside the compartment, Logan pressed his ear to the door. He did not speak, but every sound outside struck him like a drumbeat. The truth was shifting. The storm Olivia thought she controlled was turning back toward her, tearing apart everything she had tried to hold together. A ping sounded from someone's phone in the cabin. A passenger shouted. The clip of him being locked up just hit 1 million views. Another yelled, "Falcon Air is getting torched online." A third added, "The hashtag Falcon Air. Bias is top trend." Olivia went pale. Her entire facade dissolved in front of dozens of witnesses. Then the captain's voice broke through the speakers, gravelly and strained. "Lead Attendant Grant, report the status of passenger 1A immediately. I have received updates from ground control, and they do not match your report." Olivia froze like she had been shot. The cabin curtain swayed in the air-conditioning breeze, but she did not move. Her body seemed to shrink. Lost. Every pair of eyes on the plane sharpened toward her like drawn blades. Rachel stepped forward, her tone level like she was delivering a verdict. "You should open the door." "Right now." Olivia shook her head. "No, I cannot. If I open it, the captain will know you were wrong." Rachel's words were soft, but the weight of them made the cabin tilt like another burst of turbulence. The metal frame of the compartment door clicked faintly, the sound of expanding metal under pressure, but to Olivia, it sounded like a judge knocking for order. She turned toward the compartment. Her hand trembled. Step 1. Step 2. The entire cabin held its breath. Reed stepped aside, distancing himself from the door, as if it were the embodiment of a truth he did not want to face. Olivia placed her fingers on the latch. Her skin had gone pale. Her whole body shook as if she were touching a live wire. But before she could open it, a loud thud exploded from the rear cabin, like someone dropping a suitcase or slamming against the wall. Everyone whipped around. Hank Lawson, the irritable oil tycoon from mid-cabin, had stood up, his face crimson breath thick with alcohol. Enough, he roared. He is the problem, not her. You are blaming the flight crew because of some fake first-class poser. Keep him in there. Heavy silence crashed down. A spark caught. Olivia saw opportunity. Reed saw opportunity. Hank saw opportunity. But Logan, he heard everything. And in the darkness, he closed his eyes for a moment, not from fear, but because he recognized what was forming. A new storm born from the fear of those unwilling to admit they were wrong, merging with the arrogance of someone who felt power slipping from his grasp. Hank marched up the aisle, jabbing a finger toward the compartment. Keep him in there. A few mutters of agreement rose from the back. A small group. But reckless and dangerous, Rachel stepped forward, squaring her shoulders at Hank. A passenger is being held illegally, and you are trying to incite the cabin. Do you want to be prosecuted too? Hank scoffed, dripping contempt. You think a couple of videos will change anything? No. Someone like him will never belong in first class. Inside the compartment, Logan opened his eyes. Steel flashed quietly. Outside the cabin erupted with protest. Several passengers stood up. Phones lifted. Screens glowed against the faces of Hank, Olivia, and Reed, spotlighting them like characters caught in a villain's reveal. Olivia's entire machinery of control collapsed, her fake authority disintegrated, and the cabin, once divided, was now shifting firmly in one direction, the right one. A strong gust hit the plane, and it tilted slightly. The tilt was not dangerous. The danger was the shift in power, accelerating inside the cabin. Olivia heard the uproar, the objections, the replaying videos spilling from other people's phones. She turned to Reed, her eyes filled with desperation. What do we do? Reed glared at her. You made this mess. Not me. Another crack. Bigger. Deeper. Hank was still shouting. Rachel was still blocking the aisle like a soldier. Passengers were recording every second, every breath, every twitch. And inside the compartment, Logan listened to it all and knew the moment the door opened, he would not simply step out. He would rise, and everyone outside would have to face a truth they could never undo. The cabin heated like a pressure chamber, not from altitude or airflow, but from the truth swelling so violently that nothing could hold it back anymore. Every passing second stretched the space tighter, like a rope pulled to its limit, waiting for the smallest force to snap and lash back at the one who created it. Olivia retreated toward the storage compartment, her eyes darting like an animal cornered. Her face had gone pale, her lips trembling, yet deep in her gaze there still burned a dangerous spark, the kind found in people who would rather destroy everything than admit they were wrong. Hank kept shouting from mid-cabin, his breath thick with alcohol like toxic smoke. Why are you all defending him? He is the problem. The problem from start to finish. Get him off this plane. A few others began echoing him, not because they believed him, but because blind adrenaline spreads faster than reason. Rage always travels easier than truth. Rachel stepped forward, her eyes sharp enough to strike flint. Sit down. Now. She did not shout. She did not shake. It was pure authority. Hank let out a short, mocking laugh. Who do you think you are? I spend more money on this airline than all of you combined. I do not. No one cares who you are. Rachel cut in her voice, so cold it froze the entire cabin for a beat. In that suspended silence, Hank realized he had run into a wall that ego could not break, a person immune to fake power. Olivia clung to the only thing she had left, her lies. She inhaled sharply and turned to address the cabin, her voice unsteady but pushed loud. Everyone please remain seated. The man in the compartment behaved in an unsafe manner. We had to isolate him for everyone's safety. A wave of protests erupted. Unsafe how I saw you shove him. You lied. I recorded you laughing. You locked him up illegally. I already sent the video to the press. Olivia froze. Some passenger's eyes had begun to redden with anger. She stepped back again. Reed stood beside her, feeling the entire cabin turning against them. He lowered his head, unable to meet anyone's gaze. People who rely on small, borrowed authority crumble fastest when real light hits them. A loud notification ping echoed across the cabin, the sound of an airline tablet receiving an internal message. A junior attendant opened it, looked at the screen, and her face drained of color. Her lips trembled as she read aloud. Lead Flight Attendant Olivia Grant. Effective immediately, you are suspended. Pending emergency investigation. Order from Falcon Air Headquarters. The cabin erupted like a crowd watching the truth appear in writing. Olivia stood frozen, trembling her spine, folding like she had been struck. Inside the compartment, Logan remained still, but he heard everything. Olivia's ragged breathing, Reed's shocked silence, the rustling air of a cabin beginning to breathe again after hours of suffocation. A passenger shouted, "Let him out! Enough!" Another echoed, "Open the door." Now then came a different sound, soft but carrying farther than anything before. The young girl from earlier, the one live streaming, spoke through tears. Please let him out. He did not deserve this." The cabin moments ago, roaring like a marketplace, went silent in a single heartbeat. Even the loudest troublemakers lowered their heads. The girl trembled her phone, still filming her eyes, shining with fury and heartbreak, not out of fear, but out of witnessing pure injustice for the first time. Olivia Numb lifted her hand toward the door latch. Her fingers shook so badly she almost missed it. She tried to twist. It slipped. Again. Nothing. Rachel stepped forward, exhaling sharply. "Move!" She placed her hand on the latch. A simple motion, but heavy enough to turn the wheel of justice. Click. The door opened. A cold breath of air rushed out. Inside stood Logan, straight-backed, his dark suit slightly rumpled, a sheen of sweat on his temple. Yet his eyes were impossibly calm. Not furious. Not broken. Just a silence so powerful it made the entire cabin hold its breath. Olivia stumbled backward, as if the man emerging was not a victim, but a shadow of power rising. Logan stepped out slowly, steadily, each footfall making the carpet seem to tremble. Dozens of phones rose. Live streams burst back to life. Voices shouting for justice surged again. But Logan said nothing. He simply stood in the center of the cabin, the warm cabin lights outlining him like the focal point of an unfolding film. And in that moment, every single person understood the same thing. The real storm was only beginning. The cabin could no longer breathe normally. The air thickened, sticking to skin, to throats, to the nerves of every single person inside. Logan stood in the center aisle, silent like a verdict not yet spoken, but everyone felt the weight of him pressing down on the entire aircraft. He did not raise a hand. He did not shout. His calm was the most frightening thing to those who had just built their lie. Olivia stepped back, face drained of color, each retreating step like falling into a bottomless pit. She clung to the last scraps of authority she had left: the uniform, the name tag, the radio, but they were no longer shields. They were evidence. Reed stood behind Logan, hands clenching and unclenching, clenching and unclenching. His large shadow, once something that made others step away, now seemed to shrink under the anger radiating from the passengers around him. Rachel stepped forward, stopping 1/2 meter from Logan, her gaze sharp as steel. "Are you hurt?" Her voice was not soft, not comforting, only the precise concern of someone who knew truth needed to be recorded immediately. Logan nodded once. "Fine." One word, yet it hit harder than any long sentence. An elderly man rose from his seat, gripping the headrest for balance, his voice trembling with age but filled with fury. "No one on this flight believes locking you in there was right." Voices answered him at once. "Exactly. Outrageous, blatant discrimination." Olivia sucked in a shaky breath, trying to steady herself. He was being unsafe. A passenger pointed directly at her. "We filmed everything. You were the unsafe one, not him." Olivia's lips pressed so tightly they turned white. She wanted to argue, but lies are always loud until truth walks in silently. A sharp ding came from her radio. The captain's voice cut through cold as ice. "Lead Attendant Grant, report to the cockpit immediately. I have received an urgent complaint from headquarters." Olivia flinched, frozen for several seconds. Then she turned and hurried toward the front, as if escaping a fire. She knew what was happening. The entire crew knew. The cabin knew. Falcon Air headquarters had stepped in. And that was never good for the one caught lying. Reed stayed rooted in place, unsure whom to follow. Logan did not even look at him, but the silence surrounding Logan pushed Reed into visible panic. He tugged at his collar as if asking himself, "When will they call my name?" A woman from row 4 stepped forward, eyes red. "I am sorry I did not speak up earlier. I thought she was just following procedure." Logan looked at her, his expression without blame. His silence said, "Procedure is only right when the person using it is right." Behind her, the live stream girl, still trembling, but with eyes burning like a spark, approached the front rows. Do you want to say anything to the live stream? People are asking. There are hundreds of thousands." Logan looked into the camera. He said nothing. He only looked. And that look, deep, steady, powerful, sent the comment stream exploding. A silent figure, standing tall in the face of injustice, always makes the world raise its voice for him. A loud slam echoed from the rear cabin. Hank Lawson stood there, face-flushed, purple veins bulging in his neck. Ridiculous. This whole plane is being manipulated by a bunch of cheap little videos. He stomped several steps forward, eyes full of contempt. "I will say it again, that man does not belong here." Passengers reacted immediately. "Sit down, stop stirring things up. People like you are why society rots." But Hank kept going. Years of unchallenged privilege convinced him he was untouchable. He pointed a finger at Logan. "He is not first class. He is just a Logan," lifted his head. One look enough to turn arrogance into stone. And in that exact moment, beep, beep, beep. The intercom clicked on. The captain's voice came out sharp as a blade. First-class passenger Logan Pierce, senior representative of Falcon Air, has been officially confirmed on this flight. All crew members are ordered to submit incident reports immediately. The cabin erupted. Gasps, shouts, phones dropping to the floor. Hank froze, as if someone had shot him in the leg. The live stream girl screamed, "Oh my God, he works for the Airline." "Is he a CEO, a CFO? Who is he?" Someone said he is the top-level VIP. Passengers swarmed with shock, staring at Logan. Rachel turned to him sharply, eyes wide, not shocked at his power, but at the way he had endured everything in silence. Reed stumbled backward, his voice cracking. You are corporate leadership." Logan did not answer. He simply looked at Hank, a gaze heavy as judgment. Hank staggered back, step after step, his mouth open, but no sound coming out. The cabin looked like a painting, torn in half one side, full of a truth too massive, the other crowded with lies too small to survive. Silence swept through. Then Logan spoke for the first time since stepping out of the compartment. His voice low, deep, not loud, but overpowering everything in the aircraft. I gave you all a chance to do the right thing. The cabin chilled. Logan looked around at every face, every witness, every person who acted or stayed silent. No anger, no revenge, only the bare truth, what they did and what they failed to do. He turned and began walking toward the front of the cabin. No one dared to block him. No one dared to breathe too loudly. And the moment Logan touched the headrest of the first seat, the plane shuddered violently, and the speakers crackled to life once more. The captain's voice, now urgent and strained. Falcon Air is requesting an emergency landing in Austin. There is a priority situation involving passenger 1A. Crew prepare for special protocols. The cabin fell into a blade-sharp silence. Everyone understood. The truth had outgrown the aircraft, and the next storm was waiting on the ground. The airplane's fuselage screamed like a giant blade, slicing through thick clouds, the clash of hot and cold air cracking against the metal like something splitting apart. The cabin dimmed for a heartbeat, then lit up again. No one spoke. No one even dared breathe deeply. The silence tightened around the space, the kind that only appears when everyone knows that what awaits on the ground is no longer the problem of a single flight. It is the problem of an entire system. Logan stood at the front of the cabin, one hand on the headrest, his eyes locked on the closed cockpit door. He did not look like a victim. He did not look like a man cornered. He stood like someone who had just awakened from a trial by fire, and now fire could no longer burn him. Behind him, Hank collapsed into his seat, his face purple with shock. He gripped his Stetson hat with trembling hands, like a man stripped of the mask of power he had worn his entire life. The words he had shouted only moments earlier, "He does not belong here," were now turning back on him like knives. Olivia stood near the galley, no longer proud, no longer in command. She was just a shaking woman pressed against a wall, her eyes glued to Logan, as if she were seeing the ghost of her own making. Reed stood a single step away from her, as though keeping distance from a radioactive source. Then the intercom buzzed to life, the captain's voice, heavy and cracking like breaking concrete. "Crew prepare for emergency landing. A special response unit is waiting on the ground. All passengers must be seated and buckle up immediately." No one argued. No one objected. They followed the order as if the plane had been hijacked. But it had not. The only hijacker was the truth they had tried to lock inside that storage compartment. The aircraft tilted sharply, yellow cabin lights flickering as metal groaned beneath their feet. A few passengers gasped. The live stream girl clutched her phone tightly, but kept recording her eyes, shining with fear and courage all at once. Rachel fastened her seatbelt, but kept her gaze on Logan. She did not ask if he was all right. She did not question him. She simply watched with the understanding of someone who knew the storm was coming, and Logan would walk into its center by his own will. The plane dipped altitude, dropping fast. Pressure pushed down on the cabin. Breaths turned shallow. Passengers gripped armrests and each other. Fear moved through the cabin like electricity, but Logan remained standing. "Sit down," Rachel shouted. Logan did not move. In that instant, the cabin understood something. He was not a man waiting to be rescued. He was a man preparing to land so he could act. The landing gear slammed against the runway with a thunderous crack. The plane skidded, shook, then slowed. Outside, the lights of Austin Airport flashed in long white lines, like the runway itself, signaling the arrival of truth. The aircraft door opened. There was no gentle stairway, no cheerful farewell from the crew, only a line of police officers, black jackets, holstered weapons, and the harsh red and blue strobe of patrol lights reflecting off their uniforms like blades. An airport security officer shouted, clear the aisle now." Another pointed, "Logan Pierce." Logan stepped forward, firm, steady, unwavering, not like a man being summoned for arrest, like a man summoned to witness the collapse of those who had crossed the wrong person. Passengers whispered in shock, "They are here for him. Is that a special response team? What is happening? Lisa?" The live stream girl cried from the emotion and pressure, but did not stop recording. He did nothing. They locked him up. "Please record everything." As Logan reached the final step of the air stairs, the hot, fuel-scented Texas air hit his face. He looked across the scene below. A row of police vehicles, several black SUVs from Falcon Air headquarters, a cluster of reporters. And at the center of all of it, Mia Donovan in a dark, tailored suit, hair pulled tight, eyes sharp enough to cut. She stood like a commander holding the field. When Logan approached, she spoke just loud enough for him to hear. "Are you all right?" Logan answered with a low breath. "Begin." One simple signal. Enough for Mia to raise her hand. A security officer immediately dragged Olivia off the aircraft. She screamed, "This is a misunderstanding. I did not. I was following protocol." Mia turned her voice cold as carved stone. "You locked a senior executive of this airline inside a storage compartment. You assaulted a passenger, lied, manipulated, humiliated, and endangered an entire flight." Reed was pulled off next his face, the color of candle wax. Hank, trying to slip away with the other passengers, was stopped by two officers. "Mr. Lawson, please, step back." He tried to protest. "I am not part of this. A police officer, cut him off. You incited violence on a commercial aircraft, and the online footage shows everything." Hank cursed, but his words fell flat under the weight of the truth. And Logan? He stood in the center of the tarmac. No handcuffs, no detainment, no interrogation. He stood as a focal point of the lights, still tall, unmoving like a statue. Passengers began disembarking, each one staring at him in disbelief, overwhelmed by a truth far larger than they imagined. A man whispered, "He was never just a passenger." Another replied, "They said he is with Falcon Air, high-ranking." A third spoke loudly without a meaning to. "I do not know who he is, but clearly this is not someone you mess with." Logan turned and looked at the crowd, saying nothing. That silence was the strongest warning of all. The airport wind lifted the hem of his suit jacket. Headquarters SUVs switched on their lights. Mia stepped beside him. "Logan," she said, her voice tight but steady. "The board is waiting." And so is the media. Logan looked toward the terminal entrance where the glow of cameras was already gathering. No rage, no hatred, only responsibility and the cold focus of a man about to expose an entire rotten system. He walked toward the light, and the airplane behind him, along with every lie stripped bare within it, was only the beginning. This story exposes a truth long warned by those who study social justice, that injustice does not begin with violence. It begins with a wrong glance, a wrong judgment, a person who believes they cannot be wrong. From a tiny storage compartment on a plane, to a full-scale systemic crisis, Logan shows that when a single person stands tall, the entire rotten structure is forced into the light. Justice is not always loud. It often comes from the steady silence of someone who has been wronged, and from the courage of those who dare to raise a camera and record the truth. If you believe stories like this must be told for society to become better, please like and subscribe. And before you leave the video, comment the phrase "Stand Tall."